The notes are.
Okay, thank you. Those. Let's call the meeting to order, 7:05.
We have a copy of the agenda.
You need one? Copy, you're set.
Oh, sure. Well, I can tell. You can go, you know, I could head out. But I gotta head out around the.
Yeah. We can do it quickly, approval of the agenda as amended. There's no 14-15.
And there are no minutes to approve.
And no minutes to approve, so we'll wait for those to be transcribed. What app are you using for doing the
I'm
transcribing?
not, we're gonna get to that. Is there an app that you recommend?
Well, there's a bunch of them, yeah.
Good, tell me, because it's about time. I was gonna wait to about my kid when he got here in a couple of weeks to help me figure out how to go into these AI apps to do this, right?
But it has to hear us too.
Yeah, but they get it from this, I mean, or they'll get it from this, but I'm hoping it'll work from this transcriber, but. The app right now has been pegged, right? But we're gonna get an app, and if you have some ideas, just yell them out. I'd love to hear what apps you recommend or are using.
I guess you could just go to Play Store and
Into
Google Play and
Yeah,
kind of read the reviews.
what app do you recommend? That's
just
for newbie moron, okay?
The week that I did it, I recorded on my phone, they just dropped it in Chat GPT and said,
Easy for you to say, okay, that's really all you did is you put it on your phone and then dropped it and that's a mystery, but let's do this offline, you know. I'll get out.
Okay.
We're gonna enter the 21st century.
And we're all gonna have to read it to make sure that the app did a good job.
Of course,
Yeah.
I mean, we realize that it- absolutely, but really, it's about time we enter the 21st century and all we start saying.
Okay,
You got it.
so it's just the main minutes, there's no June meeting,
I'm gonna do the June minutes.
no June minutes would be easy.
No, the July minutes and the minutes.
All right, for the June meeting, I had invited Meg Gonzalez to give us a report on the Outdoor Alliance, Grafton Outdoor Alliance. And I told her when we cancel, you're welcome to join us here, but whatever. Did anyone go to the open house? Yeah. Anything of interest for us as a mission to add in on our town plan, perhaps?
well, they did a vote, they had all these posters that they had on the wall with the suggestions that they had, and then people put stickies on ones so that they could kind of do a range of, you know, which ones were most popular and the least popular. And, you know, I think the, you know, low disruption activities was a big one. That they want to pull events to Grafton, but you're not like a motorcycle scramble, you know.
No dirt bikes?
Yeah, no dirt bikes, not, you know, quiet activity kind of things, though they did suggest, you know, they're trying to, and this is more of a tavern, but they talked a little bit too. They're trying to get the Act 250 changed so they have maybe a music festival, or a farmer's market, activities like that.
Mhm.
So they're proceeding with that. The other thing I thought was interesting was, the interconnection of trails. You know, that we already have. And that was the other comment is that, most towns that they get involved with are trying to figure out how to create assets and then leverage the assets. They said Grafton already has all the assets, which is a huge advantage now figuring out how to use them. And the ball field was a discussion item, which, you know, I thought was interesting. Look at that be, you know, used to make, you know, more use of it for the town.
Mhm.
You know, and people who have lived here a long time and grew up here know that there did used to be,
Yeah,
you know, a lot of
a
activity.
lot of history on that ball field.
Baseball.
Yeah. So it's all overgrown now. So it's all overgrown now.
Yeah, and another issue, that, I thought was kind of interesting was parking. You know, when they had the event, what they call, where they do it in the village park, where they do the,
You know, the ferry.
ferry, the ferry built. They said the parking was like pretty horrendous throughout the town, so, trying to figure out how to handle parking for events. Like, do you have people parked out at the ponds and then you have a shuttle? Yeah,
Hmm.
and they said the non-glamorous side that
That's
always
been
comes
done.
up is where are the bathrooms when we have, all kinds of people, and how do you handle that? So it was interesting, well managed.
Well, for big events, they need to hire, get in the glam toilets, right?
Yeah, they had ideas about it, it's just, those are the sort of topics that. They're talking about.
Yeah, I think glam potties or something, what do they call them?
Talking about the ones that are in the nice trailers.
Yeah, you have hand washing and everything.
And I'm paraphrasing, it's a very long.
No, you did great, you did. Before, just for what it's worth, I was out for a bike ride, and in the Athens Meeting House, they have one of your friend's porta potties. What was it, the green, the guys who take the urine.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Actually, I took a picture, I'll send it around. It had a porta potty with a bunch of decals on it that it was an eco-friendly porta potty, and the urine is used for fertilizing.
Mhm.
Great, cool. And I didn't know they had a porta potty there, so that was good to learn too.
Mhm. That said, could we set up more permanent porta potties somewhere in the village? Like just be serviced on a weekly or bi-weekly basis.
There's one up at the Village Park in the parking lot.
Yeah.
GIA does that one?
There's one down at that, the shed across from the firehouse.
Yeah, okay, right,
And
right,
I
right.
think that's seasonal. if I'm
Yeah,
not
they used to
mistaken.
keep one up at the pool, no longer there.
Oh, right, we gave it up a little bit.
Yeah,
They had mentioned maybe having the cabinet rafting trails open for people for that.
Mhm.
Well, one thing that's changed then, since the last plan, is this has to play a much more significant role.
Absolutely,
Oh,
yeah,
I was thinking, on Airbnbs, this is another major new event or new change. So, in that way. I'm not sure how many porta potties we want to put in it. Probably make the known, probably people do know. Like, how many events do we have here in which that becomes an issue?
well, certainly the ferry houses.
Very house, the ice bar, whatever they call it, when it gets filled.
I know it provided several for the ice bars, I recall.
Yeah, well, I know you need it because driving back. When the events one of that, had to go around a guy pissing in the middle of Thompson Road, so.
Really.
Yeah. So,
Hope they wouldn't be doing that anymore.
yeah.
All right, yeah, so definitely, keep it in the radar for the town plan of the recreation. And so how far? They have their grant approved, right?
Yeah. So. What's that?
I don't recall.
Yeah, I think they do, they're just now gauging public interest in all the
And
information that
we're-
we gathered.
And we're best to use the funds, yeah.
Oh,
Certainly kiosks and,
But I
Infrastructure.
gotta admit, I don't. I'm sure they said that, but I don't talk 100%.
to what degree have they, covered the integration of trail systems in Grafton? Because you have the vast trails, which don't really have anything to do with, summertime pedestrians. And then you have Pond's recreation trail system that goes up on the hill, which is quite extensive. And that's not vast. And then you have the, Windmill Hill Pinnacle Association.
Yeah.
Comes over the backside. I think it comes at least to, the Daisy Turner house up there.
It does.
So I don't think my impression was they weren't including the vast trails, when they were talking about. Did you get the impression that the snowmobile trails were part of what they were talking about? I think it was.
I did, but it was mentioned by someone at me.
It was,
I didn't have the impression it was.
yeah, they were definitely looking to integrate the Pinnacle trails with the Grafton trails.
Mhm.
And also the trails in the behind the nature museum and, the village park trails.
Mhm.
I think those are the main three trails really, were the town trails, the Grafton Pond trails. And mostly really frankly, the two that were in town, because that's the pitch and obviously ties into Pinnacle, but it wasn't critical.
Yeah.
And there are a number of class 4 roads in town that should also be part of the trail.
Good point.
Mm,
Did they talk about the class 4 roads much in there? Yeah, that's a good point. I've thought of that too. You're right.
so for pedestrian, biking, mountain biking, but nothing motorized. Is that what their goal is, nothing motorized on the trails?
Well, they did talk about, that, but one of the discussions or one of the voting items were, do you keep the trails rather more rugged? Or widen out or a combination? And, I think the trend was towards keeping a little more rugged and not motorized. So that was.
Cause you have e-bikes now that are popular and you can,
Yeah, they have some of those, well, they have fat tire bikes out there, I don't know if it's three bikes, but.
yeah, the e-bike, for fat time, man. Are they still biking over at the ponds, or that's done, right? No more bike rentals?
I don't see anything about it for a couple of years.
Yeah, they didn't even do cross-country skiing this year, is that right?
Is that right? Yeah.
I saw a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
Cross country skiing.
They didn't make snow, that's what it was.
They didn't make snow, but there were people out there on the trail.
Yeah,
No. And they had the e-bike or the fat tire bikes were out there.
mhm,
Cause my nephew was out there doing silver. They'd go out there.
yeah.
Is there any discussion about coding for different types of trails?
Levels of difficulty, yeah.
Yeah, they did talk about that, and, accessibility, for, people that have more challenges and they have, like the 3-wheel bikes, things like that. And so maybe not 100%, but at least a percentage of it being accessible.
Mhm. And with that, the rescue, the more people we get out on trails, the more we're gonna have to have rescue squad available for incidents. Or a method of.
Is there any discussion about just the level of use? Because when I looked at the data, I mean, the trailer goes over the bridge at the cheese plant there. I mean, that had, as much use as everything else combined. It's rather, it's wondering,
Yeah,
especially if you're thinking about it as a way of attracting people.
yeah,
How
I
do you attract people who
don't recall.
don't walk?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it was anything you did.
Yeah.
I don't think, I'm gonna say, I don't think there was any concern about overuse of any of the trail issues. The only possibility of overuse was some sort of event. Something that would otherwise really draw large numbers of people into town, but not the trails.
Like if you did like a triathlon or some event,
Yeah.
we'd need to beef up.
And that kind of fed into the parking discussion.
Yeah.
Right.
Do we need to build parking areas?
Well, if it were triathlon, they can park out
Yeah,
there.
that'd be down there anyway, yeah. That'd be the starting point.
Well, maybe, especially since, I'll go deal with it in the plan that. There are certain kinds of activities and events you wouldn't want because you'd have to do. Potential for destruction of the trails and then, the work that has to go in to make them suitable for certain kind of activities.
Mhm.
You don't want 600 people, like, going through all that, but it's, in
Yeah.
3 years, fix it up
It'd be
again.
one way to groom them out though.
Well, if you want them groomed out, you know, so, you know, it may take some thinking and discussion on that part. Go forward with it. Certainly we should be in touch with these folks here.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I've told Meg that she's invited anytime to discuss it with us.
And I don't know if I've seen it yet, but they were going to compile the results of the voting
I haven't seen.
and then share that back. And there were, 35, 36 people.
Wow, it's pretty crowded, pretty full.
It was just one night, right? Yeah,
Oh, I think so. So
it was a Tuesday night, I couldn't. Make.
they have Grafton and Homestead Chiefs.
Okay, I got municipal planning grant on here because we wanted to keep that rolling forward. And being able to apply for September, right? That was the next deadline. Back on that, I believe it is September, cause, Matthew, Bachelor was talking about that. Their grants start September, they're due November 1st. So if we plan on maybe our September, so we got, yeah, we've only got August, so maybe our September meeting will do the application. Do it right up front.
And when we do that, it would be good to at least have a zoomed in presence from, Matthew Bachler.
Yeah. He said he'd help us soon. Was it Bachler or Baxter?
I don't know.
Any other discussion on the grant? I don't know, we do need to do it and have it available for assistance from Wyndham Regional moving forward on our town plan.
Right.
Okay. The town plan review, I think we put off the flood for resiliency until we get more data, right? That's where we kind of left off in 10.
Well, we need to know more about the legislation.
And the timing on that's gonna be when we've got 26 and then 28, so we've got 2 more potential legislatures to
Yeah.
deal with.
I think it's legislation that was passed a year ago that hasn't been fully implemented or come due until perhaps next year. So I'm delayed,
So 2024 legislation.
and we're not alone in struggling with this one. It's something that the whole Wyndham region, well, the whole state, but in our case, will be we'll be able to tap the resources WRC to help us through that.
I'm just gonna jump ahead to new business, but in keeping with what we're talking about here with our chapters, but I sent out the Townsend draft. Did everyone get it? I haven't had time to look at it, but I'm curious how they're handling it.
I haven't looked at the Townsend town plan, but I did look at the Townsend hazard mitigation plan,
Yes, that's another.
and that was quite impressive. They, they not only have done a lot of work from the people in town down there, but they seem to have had some pretty good assistance from WRC along with it. It's a really impressive document.
So that's. It's now part of their town plan or is it completely separate?
It's completely separate. This is basically a document which um. Qualifies you in some respects for FEMA assistance. It ultimately is something that gets signed off on both by Vermont State Emergency Management and the FEMA district of Boston. And ours has been going ongoing update, but we haven't had nearly this degree of sophistication of the Townsend plan and what we've been doing. Make sure that the other people that are involved in it here have a chance to see what has been done.
Mhm.
What's the purpose of that separate document then? Start to apply?
It is linking our emergency management to the overall state and federal operations. And it stands alone from the town plan. It's something that I'm sure some planning commissions get involved in, but we do have a town emergency planning group that has been working on it and has worked on it in the past, so
Yeah.
that's our precedent.
So it's like an.
Damage prevention,
Yes,
damage prevention
and
and
mitigation.
mitigation.
Well,
I
it doesn't
think-
have any real role in town plan itself except to be mentioned.
It's worth looking at to pull things out. Pretty sure it should have been copied on.
Yeah, and I've got.
Yeah, Marty sent it to all of us,
I haven't
yeah.
looked at it.
And then I was sent the town plan from Mike down there. That looked like it only came to me, so I forwarded the town plan to you
Yeah.
folks, it's still draft. And we just have to, I just have to acknowledge him that we received it,
Yeah,
and that's it, right?
Yeah. If we've got comments on it, then. That's what they really want.
Yeah, well, he had comment by July,
Yeah, so
it's,
a
yeah,
little bit late, but still, if there was something in there that. Kind of piques your fancy and. Either you approve or disapprove of it, and I'm sure they'd like to know.
well, they're in an entirely different watershed. So. Than we are. They're in the West River Valley.
Mhm.
And of course, they've got the dam to consider.
Yeah,
Um,
So I'm a corps engineer from Townsend.
they've got
mm,
maybe 2 days to be concerned about, only one of which is in Townsend.
yeah, so as part of a public notice period and process, please review the draft and submit comments. If any to me by August 1st, so we have July here to. I don't know if there's anything that we should breeze through tonight under new business or. You know, if we all have a chance to just kind of brief it over and make any comments to me and I'll forward them to him. Is that one way to do it?
Okay,
We don't have to vote on anything, right?
no,
Individual comments?
or that, no, if we had something that. Really drove our interest, we could vote on it, but I don't see any.
Well, actually, recommendation or.
The what?
There are energy action items.
Yeah,
I think we shouldn't be commenting unless there's a certain amount of consensus However, we shouldn't be, on the other hand, discussing it over email
Mm,
if our concerns are with the business of Grafton. If we had a consensus on what we think they should be doing, yeah, I think that's fair game,
You think the safer way to do this is to do it, that's all here together and.
oh, it's safer, yeah, for sure.
But do we have the time to do that, Matt? No,
well, unless, suppose you wanna breeze through real quick, I don't know,
What's that?
wanna breeze through real quick, if anything catches your eye there.
Oh,
Probably the main thing is, well, fire and rescue, that's, we're mutual aid with them anyway,
Yeah.
that doesn't,
yeah, you sure?
what?
Just,
There's nothing there because we're different watersheds. What can? They don't have zoning down there, do they?
No,
So the same as us. Chuck Dickinson's in Townsend, right, in the line, so if he decides he wants to build a Walmart, it's up to Townsend.
yeah.
There's our parking. So Walmart,
they're wastewater management and council.
No.
Well, we can take a look at it, if people wish, quickly. See what pops up with interest, and I remember the Athens time, so it hit me is that. I knew it was a lot, but the proportion of a lot of homes. In that town is just amazing,
Yeah,
it's one of the highest in the state, it can really, you know,
A portion of what kind of homes?
mobile homes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean, I know
most
it's
of
high, but I surprised by what percentage it was. It's really a two-tier,
more so than Grafton, yeah.
Townsend isn't like that.
Grafton has shifted over the, 40 some odd years we've been here. It used to be much more, now, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not up to date on it. The 2020 is gonna RC update for Grafton. Probably 2016, the last time it still was, but not as dramatically before, but it still was.
what is the grafters, what is?
Oh, in-game.
High income and low income and relatively lower, middle, you
Yeah.
know,
No one in the middle.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was there, but, just if you don't have your stand, it's not normal first. And, but the shift that makes it different than Athens is, the low income is not the same as in Athens. And the high income, you might have a few extra at the end here, which you don't have in Athens, I don't know. So there's a bit of that shift, but it was still there.
So I have in here support for minimal small scale hydro systems where there are minimal adverse effects on the field. Or fixed stability and like health of the water body.
That would be really nice.
And then they have the same for wind. Where there's no adverse visual, ecological or sound effects to nearby residences. I mean, so that's interesting, it's kind of pushed on. A lot about small scale hydro, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. There's probably enough water flow there. Or only if you going all the way down to the bottom of the gorge, if you will.
Yeah. Well, there's pretty, right behind my house, there's
Yeah.
a brook. And if you, I don't know, do a pipe down to a pedal.
That's what I'm thinking of, if you're penstocking all the way from basically the road level. Down to the bottom,
You got 150 feet.
is there 150 feet of elevation?
I think so, if you go down below my house, yeah. It drops pretty good from the
Yeah.
road down through.
And do you own it down there?
Lot about, but pretty good, long trees.
Yeah. But the issue becomes, and you can probably get decent performance out of 100 feet of drop, is the kind of turbine you have to use. Um, with that amount of drop, you can use a relatively inexpensive turbine called an impulse turbine, which would be a Pelton, Turbo, or some of those.
Well, anyway, I think it's pretty cool they're endorsing that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the problem, of course, is if you do it legitimately, you're walking horns of the agency natural resources.
Yeah, it does say permanent, so. Yeah.
It's permittable or permitted. Yeah.
Updated permits.
We'll think about that.
We kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but we can combine the two. We'll keep,
I'm sorry, I don't follow.
I started on the town plan chapter review, we jumped into Townsend's town plan, but it all kind of meshes there.
We're talking about the Townsend complex.
Townsend,
Okay.
did I say?
I got lost, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I probably got lost.
Do they have any other mention of interaction with nearby towns in there?
I'll tell you, your neighbors, Townsend,
they-
your neighbors.
They did say something about, we're good. Yes, there is something.
At one time, a long time ago, outside of probably anybody's corporate memory down there, we had a municipal level mutual aid agreement with Townsend to give aid during times of disaster, essentially, to help each other out with equipment or manpower as needed. Don't know if they mentioned anything like that in there.
I was reading the energy part, and it says Townsend will provide education and outreach of electrical vehicles and work with surrounding towns to organize energy fairs, including EV test driving. That's specifically, I mean,
That's still in there? We had that in there from 2018.
yeah, it's item 6. Action step 2.2.
EV charging is something we should be addressing here in town. Cause it will drive tourism fairly strongly.
We decided where we're gonna put the hydrogen pump. The hydrogen engines.
It's not a adopted technology at this point, but.
Will be, Japan's moving pretty fast on
As
it.
far as technology is concerned, it probably has some merit, but it isn't that well developed to be deployed yet.
Next one.
Hmm?
The next one. The next plan.
The next one, yeah.
So
2036.
actually, they have a section 15. That is plan relationship to development and trends to plans for adjacent towns in the region. And it actually lists out each town in their plan, including Grafton. What they'd like to do with each one, so that's interesting. Got Jamaica, Newfane, Wardsboro, Wyndham. And Brookline.
They don't border Jamaica, do they? Okay, no, Wardsboro.
Yeah, they would. The West Townsend is part of Townsend, so
Yeah.
it borders Jamaica.
Jamaica never went anywhere with their septic system, did they?
What the, or, no,
We discussed their design, was it their engineering study or design that they were thinking? at one time. We had some discussions back and forth with them.
You don't recall, no?
Uh. So we had gone through the flood a little bit, so I got some notes here. Uh. Adding in other rainfall events, and then we've got Grafton and its neighbors is chapter 11. So there we go, we could tie Townsend in with. Grafton and its neighbors. I don't think we. There, Grafton shares a board. We had in here consideration was taken to ensure that Grafton's town plan included future land use. Map, including the future land use map was compatible with the four towns. Existing plans that
Yeah,
surround us, Wyndham, Townsend, Rockingham and Chester.
that sometimes can get to be a sticky issue.
So do we want to just look at their future land use map? Or Townsend? I think he did some of that.
List that as an attachment, I'm not sure. It's got maps and references at the very end of the plan. Let's see, there's a notice of public hearing. And. Commissioner report, I'll see the maps and references.
Hmm.
It has a bulleted list at the very.
Yeah,
bottom of the
community facilities, land conservation, future land use map.
But I don't see that those were included in.
Yeah, you're right, they're not. During messaging, legacy of their maps.
That would be probably the. Most interest to us. They might possibly be on the WRC website.
Hmm. The Mike McConnell is from the original.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that sent this. So would it be in wyndhamregional.org?
Yeah.
What's the watershed maps released?
Somewhere on the WRC website, there ought to be a hold down for towns. And then. I'm speculating now, I don't have that in front of me, but.
Yep.
And then there should be, other than perhaps. Documents.
Townsend.
And player maps here. Oh, they're about 2017.
Yep,
So I assume those are the last.
I'll send him a note. I won't see him till tomorrow and then pass him on to you guys and at
Sure.
least they did something about it, right? Let's see. Oh, or draft maps
Yeah. Draft maps or proposed maps.
or proposed maps, not current. Including. Future,
Yeah, future land use. I think that's
yeah,
probably the most. Pertinent,
nothing else on, just the 2017 maps and that's it.
So link to the Townsend site, I'm assuming.
We had that same trouble with ours. If you remember, getting our maps. Visible
No. Okay.
during the process.
It usually is a storage issue. So-called bandwidth, yeah,
Mm,
the maps are pretty big objects.
yeah. So chapter 12 is response to Vermont planning goals. Goals and policies, right?
Yeah, and those may have morphed a little bit since the last town plan update.
So Vermont planning goal number 1, land use chapters, number 1 here. Goal policies, recommendations. So does that, this is just reference back to the chapter, right?
Right, yeah,
Okay,
so it,
and,
those bullet points down through there are the items which need to be covered
yeah,
within a town plan.
yeah.
I'm not sure that this edition of the plan had any, requirement for, habitat connectivity or forest plots, but habitat connectivity, I'm pretty sure is one of the things that was going to be imposed.
I thought it was, because it was when 171 came out, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't, I don't think it got imposed upon the town plan process, but I think it is now.
Mhm.
I agree with you, I'm pretty sure that was the.
To encourage and strengthen agricultural and forest industries. Planning goal number 9. To provide wise and efficient use of Vermont's natural resources to facilitate appropriate extraction of earth resources. Restoration and preservation of aesthetic qualities of the area. Safe and affordable housing.
That would be nice.
And to encourage flood resilient communities. Goal number 14. That's the one that with the a mitigation plan. Do we want to do a mitigation plan?
Well,
Do we need to do one?
the planning commission doesn't need to. The town needs to, and the town is engaged in that process right now.
With,
The emergency.
Yeah.
action.
okay. So there's nothing more that we can do other than follow along with it.
There may be things that we can do relative to the subdivision regulation. Or in the basic flood resilience chapter. basically the town plan has to enable other means of. Act and. Implementing action. Town plan is just the guiding document.
So one of the things we are doing, we're improving our culverts.
Yeah.
The box over the buildings, right?
I would say box culverts whenever we're forced to do it. But probably, I think we probably need a lot more of them.
Fisherville, were washed out last time, those two need to be replaced. But the cost came in super high, so we postponed it. Till we look for additional grant. But the one going up the township, the highway department. Still on top of township, the highway department was replaced and someone came through the road. And,
So the ones beginning of Bell Road, that one's not,
and that one, when Beaver Dam looked out. Added it,
yeah.
not farther down.
So did you see any of that water, or it was gone by the time you, it was early in the morning that I went through, right?
Yeah, it's gone, when it happened a couple of years ago, I heard it, still I did not.
And right now, the thing is almost empty.
Yeah,
Mhm.
crazy.
And see the motor thing.
Really, I have no idea how much water was in there.
So do we leave it empty or let the beavers do their thing?
It's on private land, so I'm not sure there's a lot of control that we have with the beavers, what the beavers are gonna do. We have talked about it, and I think, Morgan was checking with the state to find out if there is any, recourse.
Had the beavers abandoned the pond?
So. Not that I knew where, unless they just have. They're there a while.
Cause they. Usually do a pretty good job of dam maintenance. It's only when they move out when the dam starts to fail.
Oh, yeah, okay, 2 years ago, they replaced it. The dam's been there a long time now.
Oh,
I think that the heat source was the real thing. Difficult for them, but.
What's the feed source like around the?
Yeah, doesn't seem like they've exhausted it, but, it is possible that the dam go down. It's been there so long, maybe they have moved on, but, not sure. I
Whose
would
land
have thought they
is it?
would have started by then.
Whose land is that?
What's up,
Whose land is it?
Clough? Yes, supposed to be, sold.
Priscilla's. Family, who lives on the hill.
Wouldn't be the first time the town had issues with that property,
A different way,
different way, different
Oh, the road,
yeah.
road and the mailbox. How many years is that file?
It wasn't the mailbox, it
I
was
know.
a little.
It's another offshoot of Fairfield. It's another offshoot of the Fairfield,
was Priscilla a fisher?
married fishing. Or a Clough married fishing, when she's the same.
I was driving one of Ivory's dump trucks up the hill, loaded with gravel. And got to that point and there was a car coming the other way. And there was no way for the two of us to pass. Next to that damn little gazebo thing that stuck out on the road.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, I didn't hit it, I stopped and I had to. Very carefully try to start back up without stalling and. All over gravel,
it used
I
to
was
be.
not happy.
The road used to go between the house and the barn, and then there was a big escalator thing. They straightened that out.
Yeah.
It should have been a good target for a wing plow.
That's the easy.
Didn't see it, it was covered in snow, I just thought it was, filled up with snow.
So all of this data, MSC's the grants of population, that's all gonna be provided for us.
WRC. Yeah, that's not a big deal.
Yeah,
You can look at the upgrades now, the upgrade.
Yeah.
I think it's almost gotten really good. It's not. It's a fully sample bed.
so the maps, are just, what are we gonna do with these? 28. Existing land use, resource areas, water and wildlife. Resource areas, land, flood hazards. Community facilities, transportation systems. Known constraints for energy generation, possible constraints for energy generation. There's two of those maps, solar resource, solar energy potential. Wind resource, wind energy potential. Proposed land use. Where are those gonna be at?
The one thing we need to do is bear down on WRC for how they are presently defining the categories of land use. We had a problem with it before. And the two, WRC and our town plan, did not use the same language for land use categories. That persisted through acceptance of this plan and was supposed to have been revisited by WRC and was not. But WRC is going through with a revision of their regional plan. And again, I think we should be trying to mesh our land use categories of what is used in the regional plan to the extent we can. And that way, well, at least if there's an argument between WRC and Grafton about given a lot of land and how it's being used, we'll be using the same categories to define it.
I don't remember the specifics of it. What I remember is that. You couldn't really mesh it unless you really changed almost some of your views of what land was for.
Yeah, there was a, well,
So there was almost like it was more than a technical issue that was at stake.
yeah, definitely. I remember there was a problem, I would call it a problem of ambiguity between resource land and critical resources.
Yeah.
And there was also a problem with rural residential at least in, and I think the term, both of the terms were good on that category, but how they were being applied to the land here was different between what we wanted and what WRC thought we should have. And then there's the problem, what A&R came down with, which the forest blocks.
Yeah.
They had just about all of Grafton. And tied into a forest, a pair of forest block.
I do apologize.
Okay.
What say?
That's still going, I'll just shut it down. Sure, yeah.
You want to?
No, keep it on, I'll shut it down.
The dongle for the power wasn't here tonight, so it is running on battery. So it might shut itself down.
Alright,
But it's okay for a bit.
and you've got your recording going anyway, so nobody's
But
on.
I thought I would leave you guys with a historical picture.
No,
Beaver Dam?
No,
And who was that?
is that your?
that's one of my grandfather's brothers out here on the street,
Grandfather's
Wow.
brother.
Leon Martin Fisher. Was my grandfather's. Oops. First one I needed to be plugged into was. So,
Yeah. Never heard of it.
We lost it. Oh,
And pushed.
good.
Like, still recording now, or is it?
It should be, yeah. It was on battery, so it's swapped in. Any pictures in the store?
The picture the Grafton News of you, that was 50 years ago.
Oh, the school fishing,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's something.
I think it was my thumb on something over here that disappeared in.
Sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
Well, that's much. Interesting history.
Well, I thought it was interesting, the perspective of the town.
Town hall. Yeah.
in Bagley Road, when there was a white picket fence there too, probably not that same one, but there used to be a picket fence that went up. So here,
I think so.
and there was a white gate that you went
Yeah.
through to go to the pond.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow.
A lot of family pictures of them, there's things. It's a different one, but it's pretty cool too. That one is my great fun.
That's quite the wagon.
Yeah,
What's he got logs on it? What's on it?
Yeah.
How'd he get the logs up on the wagon?
they probably comes down and pull it next to a bank and roll them.
Roll them
up.
up there, that's right, the old, yeah, I remember the old, logging,
My nephew still does.
ramps that they used to have.
They live alongside of it.
Alongside the road, they'd have built with logs,
Yeah.
where the trucks would pull up and they'd roll the logs out off the truck. Remember those? There were some still around just 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My grandfather said something, they started tin.
Yeah.
They didn't have an excavator or a cherry picker.
When we.
I gotta go, I'll find it next time. There was one of, his brother standing out in the street with a couple blocks.
Nice, thanks, Buzz.
Yeah.
So is Jay your brother or your cousin?
Nephew,
Nephew.
he's Lynn's son. Brother Lynn. He was a veterinarian over in,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Charlestown for many years.
I've actually met him once.
Yeah, so he's kind of built his own fishing hill over in Charlestown. So between him and Jay, and Ben, they probably have about 300 acres over there. And they probably work horses, like that.
Yeah, I've been up to Jay's place.
Yeah, yeah. Good, nice setup. Good shit, house setup, you know. So,
Well, if you will, if you.
right. Thanks.
Jay,
Right.
what were these two maps? There were two that talk about grants of running degeneration, map one, map two,
Well,
agricultural. Act 250 agricultural soil mitigation areas.
so they were broken out between the two instead of having both together.
Hydro. So it's, special flood hazard areas, that's gonna change, right?
Somewhat, yes. Might not show up very much on the map.
Deer wintering areas.
That changes all the time.
Hmm. Near the forest blocks,
Yeah,
they're green.
we had great problems with the fact that the land use here on the west side of Chester, and
Right,
land use over here. Same topography and everything is different. And that doesn't make any sense.
It's the same.
You seem to remember it was in the charting, there's just some.
Yeah, it's more so sorry, but anyways, it's all this stuff is updated on.
Hmm.
We had the region, side.
yeah, there was. Dave worked on the regional on this, didn't he?
Mhm.
Remember that?
Yeah, well. In the end, this is what we got. This is politics, sausage making.
Hmm.
The lower and here's down, and higher up would be bigger than products, you know, middle, yeah.
You know, because, you know, maybe.
Hmm. Any new solar? In Grafton anyway?
Now, this might be vaguely useful, but in practice. Not, it's the. Location of solar has so much more to do with the availability of. A given piece of good topography, which should be shown in that map, but. More importantly, if it is of any scale at all, it's a matter of whether or not you have utilities.
Yeah.
Is there, you know,
Utilities,
and the utilities are very expensive, but there was some time. It's before Craven had moved in out here on Johnson Valley Road, the previous owners were interested in solar. That would benefit the town as a big solar field. And at that time, in order to serve that, we looked at, what it would take to put the power lines out there. And just choked this project ideas right down to nothing. No way was anyone gonna pay which I think was in the order of millions of dollars. Or run a three-phase line of sufficient capacity
Hmm.
out there.
The only solar farm I know of is the one on Corey Hill in Saxon River. One of Stickney's fields, so he grew corn in. There's probably I bet it's a good 5 acre area. Solar panels. You're in Saxon River. I used to call it the shortcut, go
Yeah,
up Corey Hill to,
Corey Hill Road, so at the peak, it,
you know,
hang
going
on,
around Dump Corner,
yeah,
that cornfield there.
oh yeah, that's going in there right now, yeah.
Not back
Norwich,
corner.
Norwich Solar is almost putting that in, yeah.
So they're hooked to the lines that are down on the road below, probably.
Yeah, but utilities are quite readily accessible there.
Not sure if that was Stickney's land or if they rented that for corn. I'm not sure.
You know where we're talking about?
I wish I knew the shortcut, where is it?
it cuts off at least 20 minutes to get in the Grafton.
Yeah, really, that's it.
Huh.
You know, where are you coming down? from?
You're in Saxon River,
Yeah,
and you go past the fire station on your left,
right, fishing,
and then the road splits past Moore's Guest House.
Yep,
If you were to go right
yeah.
up the hill, that's Pleasant Valley takes you out to Route 103.
And if you turn right and then turn left down,
Yeah,
oh, sure, what's that called?
Corey Hill,
Oh, yeah, of course.
little shortcut.
Yeah.
In that cornfield, you look in the back corner there, and they've got some.
Okay, the top is also the top of the hill on the right hand side. It's on the right hand side, if you're driving, going up from Sac River down to back to 121, it's the corner, it's on the right hand side or there's no?
Well, there's one on the right down at 121, but if you go, as soon as you start on Corey Hill from up on Pleasant
Right,
Valley, it's on your left.
okay,
Yeah.
I just haven't really noticed it, but.
Same farmer does both fields,
Yeah.
but I noticed last fall they had ribboned off that back corner.
You say they put solar there?
Yeah, they're just about done. You know, they put the road in, the spring was finished. I thought they were gonna build a house back in, it's just on the road. And then they thought all the structures and there's solar farm.
A really good place for them.
Yeah, it's not visible.
And, can't imagine if the soil is that good there because if they're not on top of it, they're pretty damn close to being on top of the old dump.
Mm-hmm. Look, the infamous wind. Resource. Is that even a topic these days in Vermont?
No. Not really. The permitting is just outside.
Interesting to see what happens.
Nuclear is other thing.
Yeah,
Most, it's like,
Well, there's. In New York's saying, yeah, let's do it,
What, nuclear?
yeah. Safest thing on the planet.
Should happen.
Look at the subs, you pull a sub up to New York City and power New York City off that sub.
I find more interesting the efforts to get, small scale nuclear.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
that's the future.
but Buzz was on it, was he on
Because
the
that'll allow
yeah,
you,
He was on your sub, yeah.
yeah,
that'll allow you to decentralize, nationwide grid.
Yeah.
And after that,
Hmm.
probably a hell of a lot safer, in terms of-
Well, they've been talking about having a power supply, just using. Uh, nuclear waste products. And making small portable power plants the size of your phone that would power your house for 20 years. And then after 20 years, you take it and just throw it in the trash because it's completely, radioactive. Have you ever heard of those?
no.
That's the size, I mean, maybe the size of a flashlight or something that's gonna be,
And
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that it would be non-radioactive.
it's probably too efficient, no one would want it to be in the marketplace.
It's almost.
Sure.
I don't-
Your
I don't-
science fiction movies.
Yeah, I don't think there's any possibility that it would be non-radioactive. Not unless it were fusion reaction, not a fission. So nuclear waste is fissionable material. It's already lost a lot of its activity, radioactivity, but it's normal decline in radioactivities over hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Really?
So the idea that it will be non-radioactive is a little bit of a stretch. I think.
Yeah, it's the half-life of uranium. I think that's a lot, it's not like carbon, it's like 5,000 years or something.
It's ever declining.
Yeah, but half-life, it's 100,000 years.
Howard Funny, he worked and trying to figure out what to do with it. He worked for Lawrence Livermore, the big nuclear plant
Yeah.
outside of San Francisco. And, you know, they were doing all this stuff and they're trying to find places to bury it. And one of the big questions was to find the way to sign it. So that people would still not go there, like, even if we weren't quite human anymore, we had to certainly. Want to make the symbology or whatever, say, you know.
Keep up.
Crazy stuff.
They want to move it to say, get out, you know.
So let's have a map that has nuclear, proposed nuclear use.
Yeah, we can't find a place to do,
That would get some towns.
yeah.
Yeah, I can get on my side.
You know, what's your
Maybe we'll get
plan?
some, maybe we'll get some folks to our meeting here.
Well, we don't wanna go whole hog and just say permissible sites.
Permissible nuclear sites. Boy, would that, we'd have a house full here.
Yeah,
Well, we've been through most of this. We'll do it again next year. No, we'll keep moving on.
Years are 26 and. Once you have. A sort of a that. And it's still at least a year.
Hmm.
Or at least a year, of just all the public meetings and back and forth and everything and. You know, reviewed by different agencies, so that. It seems the goal should be that by the end of next year, we have to have.
The draft,
Draft.
yeah,
At the end of
No no longer
Yeah.
taking notes and it's over the
Hmm.
things effort.
Year and a half,
Draft.
yeah, by the end of 26.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't see it doing any longer than that, without taking a chance.
no. You might get it processed in less than a year, but to get it done in less than 9 months is bordering impossible. You've been there before.
So.
well,
It
one
doesn't have
way
to
to
be
get,
done now, but at some point in the near future, we have to be talking, so how does this thing get rewritten?
Hmm.
Okay.
Right. Exactly.
Bring in
Cause the last, this one, Dave literally spent the summer just rewriting the thing.
We're gonna get somebody like that again, is that correct? You're gonna get somebody for that as well this time.
Well, we had Chuck
yeah,
helping
Yeah.
us, we had Bill helping us. And then Dave took the bull by the horn and just started putting it together. And got it done. Presented it to the Wyndham Regional, right, and then they. Kind of batted it back and forth,
Although
you know more about that than I do.
we certainly went through it with a fine tooth comb. He did rewrite some parts of it. Without a lot of input from us and then. You know, I would say that there weren't hard feelings, but the process seemed a little bit forced.
yeah, it was, you know, good question, is, you know, was it, did we reach sort of the point where it had to be somewhat forced, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't wanna get to that point,
Yeah,
I wanna get it,
We've got some-
I wanna roll it over slowly.
Yeah, we've got some flexibility.
yeah.
And not delay on it, just keep it rolling forward and.
You know, one way this can be a little bit harder for whoever the lead writer is. Because before you didn't have a real template. Now you've got this thing written, it's gonna be so easy just to adopt exactly the same language.
With modifications.
Right, but then
Yeah.
you know. And that may be that's what happens, but you're sort of accepting. The way this was put together and its frames and reference, that are around 10 years old. It's gonna be very easy just to adopt it with modifications.
Well, in the data,
Yeah,
that we'll be getting, and then. You know, go back to what I thought was some of this data information, even back 10 years ago, I thought that's never gonna happen, that's never gonna happen, that's never gonna happen. You know, it's a pipe dream.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it's an aspirational document, you know.
Yeah, so it should be,
Legal
to a
status.
certain extent, a pipe dream. You shouldn't put in unreasonable, action items.
well,
We've got,
I think we had plenty of unreasonable action on that.
I think you're,
Yeah, the goals and recommendations. Um. Many years ago, when I was doing this stuff, you know, I was involved in quite a few plans. And I've never seen so many goals and recommendations, and, you know. 80-page document as there is in this way, you know, it's just, you know, the level of realism just completely escaped this document somewhat. But that, you know, part of it is because it's a small town, and also state that has a pretty heavy hand on things, and it's a way of, you know, not upsetting anybody. I know, like in Toronto, their central area plan, and that's it involves some of the most expensive real estate in the world at the time. And, you know, you didn't play around with those guys on their property. And
it is important. Even though we may put in aspirational, language and things that we would like to see for action items. Most of the action items locally really can't be implemented unless the, town select board is on board with it and really is enthusiastic about implementing it. And you might say that's a waste of time, but it really isn't if we get into a situation where we've got regional or state players involved, and they will refer to the town plan for the guidance of the town's wishes. And there, it actually has some real
yeah,
input.
yeah,
Act 250 hearings, for instance, are one. Town plans are really important.
and that's, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's an area where the wording we choose
Makes a difference.
will make a difference.
Yeah.
Or should make a difference, hopefully. You never know.
Yeah,
Well, one of our policies for town government is to participate in Act 250 proceedings on new developments affecting the town, both within the town and the neighboring communities.
But we may want some goals and aspirations for Act 250 itself.
It's the gotcha, yeah.
If we ever wanna see, you know, another house built for less than 600,000.
We need some, not tiny home, but affordable home developments and, you know, cluster homes that are convenient and look good and affordable for families to be here and create some sort of work here for people.
well, we tried once. Out on Eastman Road.
Mm.
Well,
Mhm.
you were in town for that.
To build cluster housing.
Well, we call it, what might consider to be affordable housing, a range of perpetually affordable houses. And the Wyndham Regional Housing Trust or some such. Title as that was involved. And the, shall we call it, the elite of Grafton wanted nothing to do with it, even though it was our thing. Oh, it was terrible.
How long ago was that?
You know, that's early to mid 90s.
Pretty early, a little bit earlier than that, I think,
Well, we were here
late 80s.
in 91, so. But unless you're talking about a different one, but no, the one.
How many-
Okay, so if you remember,
What are they looking to do?
there's a place out there close to where the gravel pit is now. And there were going to be, I don't know. Really vague on this, probably. Let's say 20 housing units or so. Built out there. And, oh, we can't. Support that road out there, we don't want
It cut right across politics. What it did is, like you said, you know, the elite and people with more resources and had a certain view of Grafton. And that didn't matter whether they were conservative or liberal, just,
it. It was elitist.
they were class thing, you know, it's not necessarily, you know, clear one way or the other, it's right or wrong. It's putting 20 units and the income and, you know, and how the ownership work and all that would be vitally important, because if you did it wrong, you'd end up with something that's not much better than Tennyville that happened, you know. You have to, it really had to be done, you know, very, very carefully. And,
So they were,
but it
they were
could-
proposing a mixture of. Mobile homes, modular homes and stick-built homes. And they were all to be perpetually affordable. So that, you couldn't speculate on. It. So more money.
Yeah, no, it's, the idea I found interesting that would fit Grafton as a town on this pattern was what Peter Pill proposed for about the same time, maybe a little bit later. Peter Pill was a banker, retired banker, and their property was on Euston Road, actually. And his idea was to go around, and he was the kind of guy who could do it. People that, you know, had property and had resources and so on, and buy an acre off them that was on the road, here and there throughout our road system, we've got 50 miles of road, so. And his, you know, he said, you know, you have the potential of 20, 30 houses here. And they would, and his idea is there would be ownership, but under a certain constraint. And his idea of ownership, something that I agree on, is they would take care of the property. Okay? So you wouldn't put them together. And in a place like Grafton, you know, that makes a lot of sense. And then, you know, poor guy in bad heart died, and no one else picked up on it. It was a good idea for a place like this. And it would take things and work, but it's something you might have gotten some of the elite interested in, you know, because you could virtual signal by having, you know, given that much reduced cost an acre of your land, you've got 400 acres anyway, your house is 600 feet off the road, so, anyways. You know, that was something worth pursuing. We might even think about ourselves, you know, knowing things like that in the plan, it's an aspiration.
What's, under an acre, or what's that, what would? Activates an Act 250. For building a house, not piece of land.
I think you have to. Propose. More like 10 units. Within a certain geographic area. To trigger Act 250.
But a single home on an acre or 10 acres, was 10 acres? Something about 10 acres too.
I think that was septic.
Okay.
If you had 10 acres, you weren't. Subject to finding and proving and. Super performing septic saying.
Yeah, so. Now, this modular home that, was it Wendy putting this thing up? Modular home that's going up? In the old tennis court,
Already up.
there's a new home being built right here in the village.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm up in 2 days.
Yeah,
But
so,
Whose land is that?
I'm not sure,
I think it's, I don't know what's her name, the woman who lives across the street, the long gray hair.
Cooperman.
Cooper. I thought, I'm not sure, I mean, I don't know.
So, are they putting a septic in? Water? There's no restrictions, they could just,
Well, the
You can't-
state controls all of that now.
okay, so why didn't we see any information on that?
Has there been a subdivision?
Hmm?
Has there been a subdivision? I mean, the DRB has not seen a subdivision for that property, and I don't recall there having been one in the past. So that if the property is not being divided, they're not constrained against building a house.
Okay, so the house, the septic, does it still have to have a permit from the state for septic?
Yes,
No.
They take a.
Kim must have received something,
I'm not sure that there's necessarily a notification system from the state. I know there should be, but I don't think there is.
They dig a well.
Again, that's a state situation.
I haven't seen or heard a drill rig down there, haven't, where's their septic going? The old tennis court, they're building on the old tennis court.
Yeah, here to say I haven't been there for a while, so.
I didn't know, but a friend of mine was up and he had to ride his bike down, don't want to pay a little ways from that, he says. Oh, you must know about the house they're building in town, I'm like, really?
I saw it, I thought it was a trailer, I mean, I thought it was really a mobile home at first, there were two rooms that were side by, and.
It's modular.
Lengthwise, right?
Yeah.
And they had some friends visiting, and I just wanted to show them Kidder Hill. And like, that was literally several days later, and then we couldn't realize they put the two modular units together side by side. You know, I thought it was, couldn't figure out, because I just never see these things. But I put them together side by side, and that was then. And then like 2 days later, I go back and it's an A-frame on top of the side by side, and it's a little, you know, farmhouse looking thing, I think.
Hmm,
It's amazing, we really, and I have no idea what's inside there,
but yet,
but you're right, I thought about that.
so now we add one more house to the village for our septic.
Yeah, but I was wondering, and I forgot to even think of it, I asked you, but I mean, anyone hear about it, you say that you never heard anything about any.
I would think we should have had some information that the house was being built there.
Kind of, you know.
Are we
ironic
being
that-
planning commission, are we being the DRB, or,
The town in general,
well, yeah.
you know, Kim should have gotten some information, or Morgan. Could have passed it on to the select board, planning commission,
You know, it's ironic to think of all the governmental constraints on so many different things, you can go in and just plop a house out.
exactly,
We don't have those controls. There are a few, well, we used to have some control because we did, used to have a control over septic, but,
well, we still do. We still have, they're gonna be part of the pumping ordinance,
well, yeah, but the actual permitting of the septic system is a state affair now, and we used to do that.
You can have a chemical toilet.
porta potty.
The technology of modular homes, can be, it hasn't always been, can be very good.
Hmm.
And you can get some pretty amazing styles out of it.
Oh, yeah. No, sure, it's gonna be nice, but it's just, again, my friend is up from Massachusetts, rode his bike. Came back and yesterday told me, oh, did you know there's a house being built in the village? Like, really? He goes, yeah, the old tennis court, he knew where the old tennis court was, he used to play tennis out there, when it was, Wilson's old clay court.
But we wouldn't necessarily have known anything about it. Because we don't have any control over it.
But yet it impacts us. To a degree, impacts the village,
Yeah,
there's no limit.
You know.
It's
Raise
still on
the
our business.
village by 2%, you know. 4% probably.
Is she moving away from the house that keeps getting flooded and going across the street maybe? What's her first name? Patsy, right? Cooperman? Isn't it Pat? No, not Patsy, Pat's sister. She's a Cooperman.
I don't know, I think it's the Cooperman, but the large woman was long.
Yeah.
That's over here. I don't know. I know it was brother. What this thing,
Pat,
that's your brother's thing?
yeah, he does the fife and drum, yeah.
Right.
Well, in any event. You're right, it's not our business. But it does impact the village,
yeah,
because instead of 75 houses, now we have 76 houses that are gonna be on the septic system.
yeah.
Gee, that was the one house we needed to put it over the top.
There
Water committee update, I just sent emails to RCAP. John Kiernan. Since June 5th, and have not received a reply back. I did receive a reply from Mark Johnson, who directed me to John Kiernan. And Mark's comment was, he was curious about the grant. And when I mentioned PFAS to them, they went radio silent.
Ooh,
So I'm wondering if that's why he's not getting back to us. Just part of it.
What's this again? I'm sorry.
The water committee
Yeah.
update,
Yeah.
which. You know, we're kind of involved with it as a planning commission and wanna know from you guys what we wanna, what's our role on this thing? At this point, and then, we have the spending grant that's gonna be spent by August 31st, 2026. Every year. And the plan was that we do the water testing. On a regular basis, or at least get a baseline of where the PFAS is in the village, if there is any. And then follow up if there is, with further testing.
I would say baseline and then regular testing, as long as the money holds up.
Right.
Who went radio silent, the consultant?
Yeah, our cap, I can never remember their. What our cap stands for.
But these are the people who are
Regional.
supposed to be, we're giving that $200,000 to? Or that's-
No, they're a company that will help municipalities with, water testing. Anything in general that a community municipality might need, they're kind of like the assistant. They get grants themselves to fund themselves. So that's why he was curious about this funding. You know, I think usually the funding goes to them and they help communities, but the money's coming to us.
They're like a broker.
Yeah. Exactly. If you go to their website, if you go to RCAP, their website, it's got a whole, there's some great things for communities, municipalities. One of them is, oh, water testing. They helped us with our original water testing in the village. He was glad I reached out to him. And he said he was gonna turn us over to John Kiernan. I in turn sent John a email, hi John, love to have you come down and. You know, Zoom with us or meet with us. As a water committee. See how you can help us with water testing. and in particular, mentioned PFAS.
It's gonna be a hot topic in the future. It already is, but people are still, I think. Kind of deer in the headlights, dumbstruck by. The extent that it, has become a problem, and we've not known anything about it there.
So, where do we, as a planning commission, do we want to continue a role in this? Cause the water committee consists of Eric, myself, Suzanne and Kathy, four of us, right? The water committee,
Didn't know that I was formally on it, but I certainly would
you are
like
now,
to participate. I believe we have a role in, trying to research and promote, various, both detection and mitigation of, PFAS. And,
yeah,
any other water treatment, that might come along, because, it's actually one of our most important resources. It is way more important than just about, you can get along for a bit with air that isn't very nice to smell, but if you have water, that goes, right into your body and can, in the case of PFAS, accumulate, like the heavy metals. Really bad stuff,
mhm.
and it's in so damn many products now.
Don't drink from water bottles.
Water bottles, dental floss, food packaging,
Makeup, women put it on their face, yeah,
clothing.
anything that's water repellent.
And they picked off the easy fruit, the AFFF foam for firefighting. And that's practically gone now, except for, I guess, some military airports. But other than that, they really haven't eliminated most of the PFAS that is, in existence out there. Organic farmers in Maine had a hell of a time because they're, amended their soil with, compost from municipal waste treatment plants. And contaminated them all with PFAS.
Mm. So. My understanding is that Joe was on the committee with us, he opted out. And you were at the meeting with Emily. Back in May, May 12th. We had the Zoom meeting with Emily.
Okay.
Okay.
I spacing out on it, if I was zooming and,
No, you were here.
okay,
She was Zooming us,
all
yeah.
right. I don't remember anything terribly significant about it. Except, I think
Well,
that
she
was
talking-
where I was trying to promote the idea of the contract with the single water test
Right,
operation.
right,
Yeah,
yeah. And
That
doing the
was another
septic, doing septic observations and the drinking water testing for PFAS.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
E. coli, those two items.
yeah, Suzanne was here.
And then, we figured, we're figuring out what to do with the funds. Is it 80,000?
I thought it was more
More,
like a couple 100,000.
well, we figured drinking water. PDR would be 80,000. Update septic ordinance was 10.
I don't remember the breakdown of numbers.
Yeah, we're kind of playing around with, we're in the water testing, and that's when you came up with a company to do it out over 10 years, if someone would.
Yeah,
Or we'd prepay them,
yeah,
funds to continue this process, that the money has to be paid by the 31st of
Yeah, next year.
next August. And, Vermont Rural Water Association was the other one. That she mentioned, RCAP plus Vermont Rural Water Association. And then
There was folks that were holding their meetings up in the, Lake Maury. Resort. Remember that, and that was about a year ago. That was an organization that was mainly, manufacturers and. I don't think there are many municipalities there.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, they might be a good resource to have on board.
So, on behalf of the committee, I announced. Select board meeting a couple weeks ago that, I'm just waiting to hear back from RCAP, how they can help us. I guess we try to reach out to this Vermont Rural Water Association as well. I'd like to work with RCAP because they've worked with us before. And they were easy to work with. But again, it's explaining to them, because here's, we have the funds that we're gonna give them. But can we carry it out? Did Emily talk about a little bit about? Might be a little gray area, but you'd be able to work out the wording on it, where you pay them and they'd have to
There was
continue.
some skepticism there.
Yeah, but it makes sense, but if you're gonna spend it in a year. And you wanna carry it out over 10 years. Find someone who can do the testing for us.
Yeah,
Have they been around and expect to be around? I mean.
Well, that's the other thing, yeah. I would think they'd be around, because they're already accepting other funds. You basically roll this funding over to them. For them to spend on us. Prepaid
Hmm.
account.
okay, to somebody, you sign a contract with somebody that's gonna be doing the work.
Yeah, and they're charging us this for the next 10 years.
Okay, yeah,
Makes sense?
You get away with it.
What else do you do with the money? We can throw, we can,
Give it back.
we can put it toward the summer picnic.
So, yeah, I mean, that seems a way to try it.
And it certainly
Makes
is,
it work.
it's addressing the issue. And it's something that won't get addressed unless someone spends that kind of caliber of money. And so why not? Just write up a contract. You're gonna do this testing. Over this period of time and give us reports. We'll be able to see what's happening. It's a window into a world that, otherwise is obscured to us and. We've been obscured by. Neglect and lack of, willingness to. Address the problem. I think it's a little bit like the PCBs that are in the schools now. They're shutting down testing because they don't wanna have schools tested positive and then say we don't have any money to fix it. Yeah, it's the head in the sand kind of operation. PFAS is here. I don't think it's very extensive in this village. Want to keep on top of it and educate people as to. Where it's coming from, how we're contributing to it.
Yeah, so Steve, if we have a nuclear power plant, we forget about PFAS.
If we just test for radionuclides.
We'll always have something to worry about,
Of course.
why not? But you know what,
Keeps you young.
we're resilient.
Okay.
So, last item I had was, business, the river awareness gauges that we talked about. in, working that into our mitigation plan?
That would be nice, considering what's happening down in Texas right now, has happened. Um. The ability to detect the onset of a flash flooding event is certainly very valuable information to know, and
Well, something that quick, I mean, they say it literally dropped, what, in 45 minutes, 8 inches of rain. And it was a tidal wave of water that just went down that river.
Well, yeah, and what they had gone through a whole process, many days in terms of.
Yeah.
What was happening, because they had that hurricane that was buried. And so. Once you started getting 4 inches an hour. So that thing was 26 feet in 45 minutes.
Hmm.
Fortunately, that would never happen.
we don't have a big enough watershed up here to do that, but we
We haven't
have.
had enough rain, even with Irene.
We
do
could,
that, but anyways, but we, you know. What becomes of interest is to identify potential danger situations that. Make sense to worry about in the on.
Hmm.
I think in Texas. They had flash floods that on the roof there since forever. Never been scaled, they've always had.
Yeah.
We had no system in place for warning, and there's
And we don't
no,
here.
you have it in Vermont, we have these camps that are paid, these great camps, and kids that have these. Social media 23 hours a day, so all that stuff's away. Geez, you know, someone has to be connected to the outside world, if only if you had like an intruder, you know.
Yeah.
If you were an active criminal, and we knew about these places, you know, God. But that could happen in Vermont, if you have these places.
and we could,
That needs to be fixed up. You can have that experience, you know, for the kids. And still, you know. I mean, what happens in there, you know, if someone falls and breaks an ankle? And they didn't even have connection, they would put them in the car and go away. So,
we could have flash flooding that would raise the river level. Probably 15 to 20 feet. And if you can imagine what that would look like coming down through. It would really be serious.
yeah.
The technology does not exist right now for what is needed. I'm tempted to spend some time trying to engineer something that would work for that. Because what you need to have is a remote sensor that gauges the rate of rainfall and sends out a signal with it needs to be have its own solar power, backup power to send out a signal periodically, like every 15 minutes. And give a rate of rainfall figure that then would be able to warn people. If you had an inch of rain per hour, that's a real heavy rainstorm around here. You have 2 inches per hour, that's a very serious and cause some washouts on lots of roads. You have 3 inches an hour and you better be getting people out of houses. We don't have any means of sensing that.
So if we put, you know, find homes up the watershed that have Wi-Fi for a starter. And we talked about the Tempest
Yeah,
system. That could, and there's a way to find. Now you can go into history and find what fell yesterday. But there is a way to go into that app and find what's currently falling at any one weather station.
Problem is, there's no gauging around here. Except we.
Right, you put this weather station along, near closest to the, I've already picked out a few homes up 121. And then going out Pleasant Valley. You find, you're just kind of collecting data from the watershed
Yeah, it's really, you need to go up in the window.
in Wyndham, all the way to Lawrence Fork Farm.
Yeah,
And most of those homes have power, they have Wi-Fi. You buy the system, you say, can we set this up, run off your Wi-Fi, you give them a stipend. And then the data gets sent out. Easier than saying to Army Corps of Engineers, well, this is what we wanna do, because then it'll take forever, right? 'Cause they're-
never happened.
Never happened, so we might just do it right now. And then that information could be in a computer screen at the fire station here. And
It's actually, something, if one were to come up with the right kind of, water rate of fall gauging system, it might be something that it could, sell to Tempest to include in part of their instrument package.
Mhm. Yep,
Making
Any other-
assumptions about the value and the capacity of these technical systems and the really messy world situation. One of the things that came up about Texas is when people said, well, why don't you have an early warning system? I told people, on what basis do you tell people? Because we didn't know until just ahead of time. Everybody was doing their job. What I could see the default was at some level, maybe at the state level, knowing if this was a flash flood area, that had flash flood on an ongoing basis. Even, those just warning people to get out. Should have been a priority somehow. The regulations and for how you could do it. But, you're not gonna know from just beforehand. I mean, think about the 96 flood here. We had saturated ground,
Mhm.
and then we had that cell that sat over Grafton. Thursday afternoon and Wednesday afternoon. 4.5 inches of rain. Next day, same damn time, so, the 4 inches. So we lost every row. Who the hell can plan for that? What kind of technical system will tell you about that?
That's what I'm saying, we need a rate of rain gauge. Because the rate of rain is what, determines the amount of water rise.
But you won't know it until it's.
It's really-
happening, it's
No,
happening, yeah, when it's happening.
What's happening?
They were pulling people out of the water here, people that would wash down. Water here, they had to be saved. I mean, it was a real event.
But the rate of rain, don't you also need to tell how long it's gonna rain? I mean, you won't know that. I mean, you can know it's coming down at an inch an hour, but if it rains for 5 hours, it's 5 days, if it rains for 1 hour. it's only-
It takes some interpretation on the back end, but right now,
How great your ground is and everything.
Yeah.
right now, we don't know what the rate of rainfall is.
I mean, it certainly is important, it's an important, measure, sure, for sure.
The amount of rainfall that falls in the day is, and that's after you're all washed out.
Well, that's what that national weather model, water model was supposed to be doing, was taking radar and predicting where
How long?
where it was going and rate of rainfall in watersheds.
Radar and stream gauging,
Yeah.
and as is pointed out. We don't have any stream gauging here, and what little we had has been shut down.
But if you can predict where a storm cell is moving. And it's an orange or a red cell that, it's at 60,000 feet and it's dropping X amount of rainfall and it's moving in this direction. those warnings are good, that's how I followed Irene,
Yeah.
was watching my own weather
We knew.
radar, so we knew to get out.
I was out with Theo in our driveway digging, little ditches across it and, turned out it was the only driveway on the slope that survived in Grafton. Because we did it in the rain. And, I had him stand in a little ditch at one point, the water was up to his knee now, his knee was only about a foot. But anyways,
Yeah,
that was in the ground, that was the ground.
Yeah.
So,
so with Irene, we knew it was coming, 'cause we had 2 days to prepare, I remember,
Yeah.
I picked up everything in my yard, I had everything put away. Lose the thing, I moved the bench to where it felt it was high enough, the water was right up
Did
to
you
it.
have a go bag ready?
Yeah, they were ready to go,
Yeah.
and we watched it, and finally Sunday morning. We grabbed the dogs and off we went to my sister's up on the hill. We're the last ones to drive through by the farm, water was just starting to fall over the road, just starting to fall, we got through it. And that girl that ditch, she was behind us, probably maybe 10 minutes. So I knew when to leave,
Boy, you were right in the middle of heavy rainfall.
yeah.
and your house is one of the most poorly located in town. Respectfully.
And the
Yeah.
water went right around it.
No, amazing.
Like I said, I even my bench, I moved just a rocking bench. Up closer to the house, a little high spot, and the water went right by it. Went through my shed, but didn't even take my shed out, luckily.
Didn't wash out the vet,
Hmm?
didn't wash out the vet and float it down the street.
No, I never got into my barn.
But those models in Texas work, their models work. But by the time you figure out what it meant, it's too late.
No, it was so quick, it showed it.
Yeah.
In real time. It was like,
Videos.
holy crap. There was two high pressures that squeezed
True.
there was two high pressures that squeezed the low pressure.
And then how would you ever anticipate that you'd have two rare events of drafting? Each very rare, each happening exactly 24 hours apart.
Wow.
Okay. It just,
Which one are you talking about? 96, yeah, 96, yeah.
the NOAA did a study of it.
At that time, we had a working weather station up by Dr. Rogers.
And that's when they first came out with rain training, the term rain training. Rain train. It was it was a train
training.
of raining, just
Yeah.
developing.
And
Both
they
afternoons.
threw out as a possible, contributor to this, is that. It doesn't seem like it, but if you look at it and look at the compost, Grafton is in a bowl. Yeah, it's like a bowl. And so you dump, 9 inches of rain in 2 days on saturated ground, and the bowl gets wet. And the idea that they threw out, they were very clear that this is just something thrown out as a possibility to think about, is that the bowl actually held these low clouds for a while. And so the rarity gets lost because you had a weather pattern that's going through over days and so on. And you had this bowl that held this little clouds for an hour and a half, and they dumped everything. That's never gonna happen again.
Yeah, this event in Texas, it's 1 in 1,000 years probably.
Yeah.
Of that occurrence.
What's that? Is that?
It's probably 1 in 1,000 years.
If you gauge it
occurrence.
by
Well,
10 years ago, yes, but
I
gauging it by today's situation, no.
What's changed?
These so-called 500
Oh.
floods that we have happened in Vermont on an average of every 20 years for over 200 years. People look at the data, So.
The storms have become more intense.
They're not happening more often. These things go back,
Right.
The actual pattern is approximately, sometimes it's 5 years apart, sometimes it's 30. But you've had these things consistently since they started keeping records 250 years ago. You just have these huge storms, it's just, why the hell not? Vermont's the most variable weather in the US. No, we get, yeah. That's why we have 5 seasons, and we have, several seasons within each season.
if you don't want to, well, you wait a minute.
And remember,
Alright, any other old business, new business, public comment?
You know, I'll look at that, Townsend hazard mitigation plan. It's a good document.
yeah, we'll look at it.
And if you'll, I'll read the town draft if anything comes to mind, I guess. I sent it an email already that we've received.
And there is a draft of the, Athens town plan that was sent everybody. No, should have had that.
Would it be possible to move the meeting a week later?
Oh, the next meeting,
The August 12th, or is August 19th? And if not, I'll do it remotely, but, Thursday or, you can see, you can figure out.
that's fine with me.
Yeah,
The 19th, that's great.
I think it'll be good with me too.
Yeah. We'll get to the 19th. A motion to adjourn,
No,
all those in favor?
About 25 years ago, there was never the eye in the sky, folks.
Mark Green.
Vermont, St. Johnsburg, and they announced. In March, and Mark had 4 days and 4 months. First time in history.
That is a really neat, event.
Yeah. I didn't realize it. Yeah, well, because it's not extreme. But I don't know, I just think we have a work tradition. They never write 2 days out for sure.
And I said, it come out all the time. All right,
Fantasy.
thank you very much. All right. Thank you, everybody. Well, see you.
Yeah.
Bye, Eric.
Yeah, my chapters are 17, 18, and 19.
So one for what, Grafton, Massachusetts, is that it?